Alright, so part 3 of the best attacks, now focusing on attacks to use during raids. So first pay attention to this Ignis Rage here. You can see I was at 5 and then 2 more hits while moving. So there are a couple of factors here. Starting with same thing as part 1, we have the skills in the bottom left now I think. We got Flame Funnel, Ignis Rage, Beam Slicer and Double Blizzard as examples. They have their powers and then they have this hidden power stat, which is basically a factor included in the power depending on how many times they hit. So each flame funnel will do 20% of that 120 power. So then I took the average hit after letting the pals just hit Xenolord with these skills for a while. The average amount of times they get hit, and you get the real power, which is the real P. You get the Double Blizzard, Beam Slicer, Ignis Rage, and Flame Funnel having quite different powers from what they are supposed to have according to the tooltip. So when you have all these factors in this test, it is not entirely matching what a proper raid scenario would look like. You can see I have one Palladius just kind of attacking him, but that's more to test these average hits. We then have the cooldown in the base. It seems to be around 20% higher than the base cooldown in the tooltip. And then you add Serenity to that for most of the pals, because unlike party pals, adding Serenity will not mess up the loop. And then when you have this new cooldown including Serenity, we have the power from the average hits. We can then calculate roughly what kind of DPS we're looking at for these attacks against this boss. And this is not with super effective, so the last little column there is like if you take Double Blizzard Spike, super effective is 50% more, you go from 8 to 12 DPS. Still not quite enough to beat out Beam Slicer, Ignis Rage, or Flame Funnel. So Double Blizzard Spike did worse than these skills on paper against Xenolord when you take the average skills. So now I'm going to be going through some of the skills one by one and talking a little bit about them and how they might look in a real scenario. Big Ignis Rage again, big surprise there. But let's start with Ignis Rage as one of these examples. I know it's not the first one, but I just want to point it out that while I did this test, Xenolord moves around a lot when there's just one Palladius in the base, and Ignis Rage tended to hit 7 times. But then when I tried Ignis Rage in a, let's say, live raid scenario, Xenolord tends to stand still a bit more. He kind of like doesn't do this whole running around thing, and I feel like the average was a little bit lower, closer to 5. So that one is a little bit adjusted depending on this, as I said, the real raid scenario when the boss seems to move just a little bit less, and when he actually does move, he's actually like taking a big quick loop around the entire base, so not getting hit in the same way as he is in this test. So it's adjusted a little bit for that. So let's start with Holy Burst. Extremely strong, hits a lot of times for full power, no reduction. So that's like the baseline skill against both Rio and Xenolord. Then we have Lightning Streak. It seems to hit around 3 to 4 times. Sometimes it hits 5 times, sometimes it misses. So that is an interesting one which will perform a little bit worse in raid scenarios because the pals will get rescued to pal pods. They will end up a little bit further away and they might unload some lightning streaks that don't actually touch Xenolord at all. But then that gets evened out with some of them being closer and hitting very like multiple times, and there's no reduction on lightning streak either. So it does get a very high average hit power and has a very low cooldown. With Serenity, it gets a 13-second cooldown in raids, which is almost a perfect loop. So it will use the 3 skills and then be back at lightning streak. So it gets used a lot, hits a lot, and then it has that added benefit of just stunning a little bit. Xenolord does have a high status resistance rate, so you'll probably only stun him like once or twice per fight. Then we got Wall Splash, which was pretty interesting that it rated so high, because it hits Xenolord 5 times per Wall Splash, so that's 15 hits, and they only have a 30% reduction. So that one hit actually very hard, and it combos quite well with Lightning Streak. They do overwrite each other if you get an unfortunate timing, so you're probably not gonna get this Soaked and Electrify combo working very well, because usually the first wave of Soak gets overwritten by the first wave of Lightning Streak, like the literal first hit of Lightning Streak will remove that Soaked effect. Then he will get stunned by the first hit of Lightning Streak, Wall Splash will be on cooldown, so that won't work either really. It just doesn't really work out the way you would hope. You could potentially like throw in some grenades in there, but it doesn't really work out as a combo like that. But they're just good on their own. Then we have Seed Mine. So Seed Mine on paper, this is again on paper, the cooldown would actually be lower than 12, but for all of the skills with a cooldown lower than 12, I put 12, because that seems to be roughly what an average loop looks like when you have these 3 skills going. So the problem with Seed Mine is that most of the time it doesn't align perfectly to this short cooldown. In order to actually do this full potential DPS, it needs to be used every 12 seconds. But let's say it's been like 11.5 seconds, then it's not going to use Seed Mine, it's going to spend like 3 seconds doing an air cannon or something, then Seed Mine falls off. Seed Mine will also be the lowest priority, so Holy Burst comes off cooldown, it's going to use that. Then Wall Splash, let's say, comes off cooldown, it's going to use that. And then Seed Mine gets used 8 seconds later, which is, I mean, it's almost its entire cooldown. So Seed Mine is a lot of DPS, it gets spammed a lot between the big skills, so it would probably pair well with something that has like these really long cooldown times, like Double Blizzard or Diamond Rain or something. Then Seed Mine can be a bit of a filler there. Doesn't look like it's that good, maybe when paired with some other skills that take priority, but still a lot of DPS to be had. Airblade, also one of those that shines on like regular raids. Like regular Xenoloord, Airblade is actually going to be a lot better than in this table here, because this one is adjusted for Xenoloord Ultra, where pals will end up a little bit further away just due to the pal pods and stuff like that. So if you have, like, let's say an easy raid, a boss that doesn't kill your pals, they will be swarming it, grouping up, hitting 5 Airblades at a time. Then it's actually a lot better. Here, I think the average was around 2.5. The Airblades, sometimes they hit 5, but sometimes they only hit 1. They do go through the boss and hit some of those Xenovaders, but I don't rate that super high because that's just something I, as a player, prefer doing, clearing out the ads. I feel like that's probably the best way to do it. Then we're moving on to Blast Cannons. This one was a bit of a surprise that it was this good. But really, if you look at it when you're using it, you'll see that there are these, it caps at 9 explosions from what I've seen. You'll never see more than 9 hits. But against Xenoloord, it seemed to hit probably like 8 or 9 times every single time. So it does do a lot of damage. Pretty high cooldown, like not super long, but decently high, which is pretty good. You don't want them overlapping too much. Flame Funnel was pretty interesting. You get these, on average, 17 orbs hitting him for 20%. They do a lot of damage. I think they kept going even when the pal got knocked out, which was very good against Ultra. There is this issue with the orbs getting blocked. So I was using Germantide Ignis. Almost no of the Flame Funnels were making it through. They block each other. Palladius seemed to work, except for like maybe some of the Alpha Palladius I had seemed to be blocking. And then the pal pods themselves can block some orbs. So Flame Funnel, it's very good, but it's not extremely... or it is good, like it is good, but it can miss. Unlike, let's say it go back to Wall Splash will pretty much never miss. They can use it from far away and it's just at the feet of the boss. It won't miss that way. Stuff like Blast Cannon and Flame Funnel can fail, and like mentioned, Lightning Streak can just be out of range. Beam Slicer, or Ignis Rage as well. Yeah, so Ignis Rage, I did manually reduce the average hits from 7 in my test to 5. So that one I manipulated a little bit, because while testing Ignis Rage in a raid scenario, the boss just seemed to move way less than when I was doing it in a single scenario. I think I got around 5 on average hits. So it does go a little bit lower. It is very comparable to something like the Absolute Frost. The difference is that Absolute Frost will lock Xenoloord in place, so he won't run into further explosions. While Ignis Rage, if Xenoloord moves around, like you saw in the example before, he gets hit a lot by Ignis Rage. And this is also not adjusted for super effective, so for Absolute Frost you would just take the DPS times 1.5, and then it becomes quite good compared to Ignis Rage. Beam Slicer, it hit the beam. Beam does 100% of the damage, and then 70% damage for each explosion, exploded around 5 times. Also quite good. It does have a bit of a longer cooldown, but it does seem like it hits like from almost anywhere. It doesn't miss either, so that's a reliable skill. Rock Burst, I couldn't really get the pals close, so on average they were standing like in this arc around the boss. Maybe Xenoloord is a little bit fat. Xenoloord also does his own sort of jump back some of the time, so Rock Burst, it just didn't work out. Then we have the tornado skills, and these are all going to be exactly the same now. They hit those 10 times. There's no bounty token effect either, so they're just identical skills at this point. We have the circle line and splash. So splash, unlike lightning streak, splash has a 50% damage reduction for each hit. So it's just a worse lightning streak, I guess. I don't know why they did it that way, that it has this reduction, or if lightning streak was supposed to have it, they just forgot it. Not sure. Then we have double blizzard spike and diamond rain. The diamond rain is pretty good because it also keeps going and it will hit Xenolord up in the sky. Kind of same with double blizzard spike. They will just use the skill and then go on and use other skills. Unfortunately, just because of the single hit thing, they just don't scale as well. You will see that most of these top skills, I think every single top skill so far has been a multi-hit skill. Let's see, I think double blizzard spike is, and diamond rain, that's when the first single target, like these skills will do the exact same DPS regardless of the size of the boss. Kind of the tornado attacks as well, actually. The tornado attacks also do the same regardless. They always hit these 10 times unless the boss moves out of the way, which can happen. It depends a little bit on how you position as a player against the tower boss, if they will move out of those tornadoes. And then we go on to some of these not so interesting ones, like Blizzard Spike and Icicle Line. Not super interesting. The pals tended to use Icicle Line pretty far away, so it didn't hit so much. When they used it close, it hit a lot, but most of the time they used it almost at the edge of the W, I guess. Thunderstorm will do the same damage. Sand Twister just seems very weak. Power Bomb, single target hit. Flame Wall seems bad. Like, I think it's broken or something. The wall isn't dealing enough damage. It ticks like once or twice on a target. I think it's supposed to tick a lot more. It just doesn't. Thunder Rain is something I wanted to bring up as well, but I kind of forgot in the part 1 and 2. So in my old tests, it did a lot better than my new tests, and I was kind of confused about it, but after watching these Xenolord fights, I think it's that Absolute Frost and Ignis Range, which are the ones you compare it with. They get used like at the feet of the boss, while Thunder Rain is getting used at your pal's location. So if you have your pals in this nice circle around the boss and they use Thunder Rain, maybe like a Thunder Rain will hit, but what they want to do is be in melee range. So that's also why I think it tested so much better during Sakurajima than during Feybreak, because during Sakurajima your pals would walk into this, the boss and your pal would be hugging each other. There was no basic skill to be used when everything was on cooldown, so your pal would walk really close and use Thunder Rain, and then it would hit quite a bit. What ends up happening now is that your pal is just very far away. So Thunder Rain, I don't know, they need to change something, I guess, or, I mean, it does what it does, I guess. It's kind of like a weird Thunder Strike right now. So, or Lightning Strike. So Lightning Strike and Thunder Rain are basically similar skills right now. They're just melee range. It's like Shockwave. A lot of these melee range, all range Thunder. So Electric has a lot of these close range attacks that don't really work well when the pal is far away. And then Apocalypse just, I don't know, it just didn't hit a lot. The tornadoes, they would form, it would hit like maybe 2.5 tornadoes or something. It has a quite steep, I think it deals like 15% of the intended, like, it feels like a worse basic tornado skill. So not super good. So I did do some raids with these skills just to try them out and get a feel for them. So I'm gonna take one of the better raid attempts for part 2 and just discuss some of those attacks that I was trying out there. So that's it for this part. Thanks for watching.